Hi guys, so I am here for a very, very special, near and dear to my heart, like so much more than that, a very, very special video. And this is my labor and delivery story. I'm already starting to get emotional about it because it was just such a beautiful experience for me. I had no idea what I was getting myself into as a first-time mama. I kept my options open, and it turned out to be the most incredible, amazing experience I have ever been through. Like, hands down, there is nothing like it. And if you're a mama, you know exactly what I'm saying. Like, no matter how you had your baby, C-section, vaginally, natural, epidural, what the heck ever, there is nothing like that feeling. Like, oh my gosh. So my story is my story. There's no right or wrong way to have a baby. Everyone has their own experience, and I just wanted to have my story out there and open up to you guys. This is very vulnerable for me. She's cooing in the background. This is very vulnerable for me because it's something so sacred. So just kind of know that it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I have a notebook here to kind of keep me on track, just like I would with my pregnancy updates. But pretty much as I was writing it out, I was like writing, and I was like, you know what? I just want to talk it out because that's like the best way to kind of explain things. So kind of a little recap. Jayden Athena Sanders was born December 22nd at 2:18 a.m. And I'm kind of going to get more into her like stats and stuff at the very end of the story. But basically going into it, I just kept an open mind. As I said before, I kept an open mind of what I wanted to do as far as interventions, as far as like how I wanted the process to be. I just knew in my heart that I just wanted John, my fiance. I wanted him in the room, obviously, like he is my everything. And then my doula, who is my best friend, and she's incredible. I knew I wanted her there, and there was a possibility of us having her boyfriend there, and he was going to kind of act as John's doula, but it kind of depended on when I went into labor because he was going to be out of town on the 22nd. He was going to go to Texas on vacation. So we kind of didn't know. It was kind of up in the air if it was going to be 3 of them, like John, and then my 2 best friends, or if it was just going to be John and my doula. So we didn't know. So we just kind of had an open mind. And that's kind of, I'm just checking on her. She's sleeping. And that was just where I wanted to be at. I didn't want like the set thing and then get disappointed afterwards if something happened. So basically I'm just gonna jump into it. So on the 21st of December, the winter solstice, I'm super into moons, winter solstice, as you can tell, or solstices, things like that, anything regarding energy. So on the 21st at 7 a.m., I usually wake up around 7 or 8. At 7 a.m., I woke up and contractions started. So at this time, I totally thought that I was in false labor because I'd been having Braxton Hicks throughout like my last trimester, just randomly. And at this point, I was 39 weeks and 6 days. So a day before my due date. So I was just kind of waiting for her to show up. I was so excited, anticipating her arrival, and everyone I knew that was due around the same time I was already had their baby. So I was just like, and even people that were due later had their baby, and I was just like, okay, anytime now. Let me go ahead and fix this a little bit. I was just like, anytime, girlfriend, like whenever you want to show up, like we want to meet you so bad. I was seeing everyone's little baby pictures, and I was like, what is she gonna look like? Like I can't wait to see her. So I just kind of kept telling myself, you know, it's false labor, but maybe it's real. I remember, like, I just didn't want to get my hopes up, but I remember laying back in bed and I was like, this pain's kind of not going away, and usually with like Braxton Hicks, if you like move around, they go away. And so I remember telling John, I was like, something feels different. And I have that quote like down here. I was like, something feels different. Like, I feel like I'm having her today. If this like isn't false, like I feel like today is the day. Like, she's like actually coming. This isn't fake. So that continued to progress. Like, my contractions started to get closer and closer to get together and a little bit more intense. I was planning on going to yoga because I was doing yoga all the way up until that day, like a day before my due date. Okay, so as I was saying, I was gonna go to yoga the next day, and I always go to yoga. Like, I don't miss a day. I was doing yoga all the way up until a day before my due date, and it was so funny because the people at my studio knew that I was in labor, like, without me telling them, because I didn't show up to class, because I show up to every single class, not every single class, but like usually like every day, and then some days I don't, like just depending on if I'm busy or not. But they knew because I always show up. Like, if I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be there tomorrow, like I'll be there. And I told them the night before that I was gonna be there the next day, and when I wasn't there, they were just like, oh, like this is it, like they knew. So it's really, really funny how that happened. But I was still in my mind like being like, should I go to yoga, should I not? And I was like getting ready to go to yoga even though I was having these contractions, because I was like, I don't know, like, again, I just didn't want to get my hopes up. I didn't want to get so excited and then have it be nothing. And so John was like, are you sure you're gonna go to yoga when you're like having contractions? Like, are you kidding me? And I was like, yeah, like, I mean, I think so. And then they just started getting progressively like more intense, and I was like, okay, I am not going to yoga. And that for me was like, this means it's real. And I think that was like the same for John. Like, I know that sounds silly, but because I practice so often and I don't let anything kind of get in between that, like that mental, spiritual, physical practice, that I don't let anything like come in the way of that. Like, I make sure I get it, like I go to my practice every day, that it just like kind of like to me and him, it was like, okay, like this is real. And so I just continued to labor at home. And then I was like in such fear that like the contractions were gonna go away, because we were both like so excited at this point, and we were dog sitting for my sister-in-law. And so we were like calling John's mom, just being like, can we drop off the dog at your house because I'm in labor? So I was getting like so excited. I was like, this is it, like we're making plans. And I didn't want it to go away. So I was like researching things, and I was like, what like helps progress contractions? And I kept seeing castor oil. I kept seeing castor oil everywhere, and I've heard of castor oil before, but I also heard that it can be dangerous. So I just was so on the fence about it. But then I was in on my What to Expect app. I'm in a mommy forum for like for December 2018 babies, and this mom was saying how she tried what's called midwives brew. And I'm just gonna take a drink because breastfeeding, which I am breastfeeding, you need a ton of water, so hold on. But this girl talked about midwives brew, and she mentioned like the ingredients and like kind of what she did. For her, she just took a little bit less castor oil. But if you've never heard of midwives brew, which I'd never heard of it, it was basically like concoction of a little bit of castor oil, or I think they like recommend like 2 tablespoons or something like that. If you just Google it, you'll see it. And it was green tea, but it was like lemon verbena tea. I just got like a Tazo green tea, like little tea bags, and then almond butter and like some kind of nectar. So you can do pineapple nectar or mango nectar, or I can't remember which nectar I got. It's kind of all a blur. Like, it's all a blur for me because it's something that big, like labor and delivery. It was just like a huge moment. So you just basically put all of this concoction together, and the normally castor oil can be iffy and like leave you on the toilet forever, because that's like what it's meant to do, is to clear you out. And so since it creates that kind of pressure down there, it kind of can like intensify contractions, but that's only if your baby's ready. Like, it's not gonna like eject your baby out. Like, it's not gonna do that. It's only if your baby's ready. So the almond butter is supposed to like counteract that, like having to like sit and go number 2 all day. And it's supposed to, what did the website say? It's supposed to like build in your, or line your intestines, I believe. So don't quote me on that though. It was just like a little paragraph I read, so that you're not just sitting there like going number 2 constantly. So I got all of this. I got this huge concoction, and we were at the store, and the lady was like, "Are you gonna take this castor oil?" Because we were getting all the ingredients, and I was like, "Yes, but don't worry, I am 40 weeks tomorrow. Like it's gonna be fine. I'm already having contractions. I'm not just trying to like have her at 37 weeks or something like that." I was like, "Don't worry." And she's like, "Oh my gosh," and she got all excited, and she's like, "That's so exciting," and she was talking to us about the baby. And mind you, I was having contractions. They weren't super close together. I would say they were probably like 10 to 20 minutes apart, just kind of depending. But when I had them, I was just breathing through them. So then we got all of our concoction. We dropped the dog off at his mom's house, and then we went home. And I'm like, okay, like we're gonna progress some more. And I just kept walking, because I knew that if I would sit, that I felt like they were just gonna kind of go away. Like, I didn't want to be so relaxed that I was just gonna like lose my contractions. So I just kept walking. I did not sit at all. I just kept walking around my house. I just felt comfortable doing that. I was bouncing on my exercise ball, and I just wanted movement. I wanted movement to kind of like create that feeling of like bringing her down and bringing her into this world. So I continued to contract, and we hadn't called my doula yet because we just kind of wanted to labor at home and have it be more intimate, just me and John, for a while. And I would say we labored from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. by ourselves. And then we called them over, and they were like, "Okay, like we're coming over." And they brought us like 90 million vegan snacks. Like, they spent probably like $50 to $70 at Sprouts and got us a bunch of vegan snacks that we would have like for labor, postpartum, just to fill our house as well. Like, they are the nicest humans in all of existence. They brought all of that over, and they were just kind of hanging out with me while I was having contractions. We were kind of just like laughing, and then I would have a contraction, breathe through it, and that's kind of how it was kind of going for a while. Then they started to get closer and closer together. So they came over around 5 to 6 p.m. My contractions started to get closer together. We called labor and delivery, and they said about every 4 to 5 minutes, if you're having them, then come on in. And at this time, my mucus plug hadn't come out yet. And my water hasn't broken at this point, or it hadn't broken. But the contractions were intensifying. So we went in at 8 p.m. at around 8 p.m. So I labored for another 2 hours at home, just breathing through my contractions, kind of getting into my meditative spot. So just kind of as a like side note, I meditated every morning, every single morning, the whole time I was pregnant, because I had been doing that for like a year, I think, a little bit over a year already. So it has been like over a year that I've been meditating every single morning. So I know how to kind of get into that meditative state, plus yoga, plus running, plus just everything that I believe in kind of like worked into why I had the labor I had, I feel like. And so I'm very comfortable with being in my head, being in my body, feeling sensations, talking to myself, discerning, and knowing that it's not pain, it's just a sensation. Like, so I just totally got into that mindset. So anyway, again, we around 8 p.m. decided, okay, it's time to go to the hospital. And that was after I was like meditating through each contraction. I was like, these are getting a little more intense. They weren't crazy intense to the point that I wasn't able to talk. Like, I couldn't talk during the contractions. They were painful, but they weren't like the next level, which I know, like, now from going through labor, that is what it's like. And I'm just checking on her again, but I'm gonna bring her a little closer to me, just a little closer. So around 8 p.m. we were at the hospital, and I was in triage, and they were kind of just like checking out what was going on, and they hooked me up to that fetal monitor where they like have like two little like round things, I don't know what they call them, and they put them on your stomach, and then you wear like a little like band around so that they can hear baby's heartbeat and measure out your contractions. So they did that, and my contractions weren't intense enough, or not intense enough, but they weren't as close together as they needed to be, and I was still dilated to a 2. So I was so bummed when they told me that, because I had just labored from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that was a total of 13 hours. And of course it wasn't like the same intensity of contractions the whole time, but I still labored for 13 hours. And I was still a 2. And I was just like, and I jinxed myself, because I was like, what if we go in and then they say that I'm still just 2 centimeters, and everyone, like John and my labor team is what I call them, they were just like, no, that's not going to be the case, you know, just encouraging me. And it was the case, and I was like, so just like, I didn't let that break me, because I was just kind of like anticipating that. But they said I was more effaced, so that was good. I was 90% this time. So I was like, something's happening, so that's good. And I still kept my faith that something was going to happen. They then offered me, so I was like really unfamiliar with this, but they were like, so are you planning on going unmedicated or not? And at that point, I just wanted to be unmedicated, because I always said that I will know in my heart if I need like medicine, if I need drugs, if I need an epidural, if I need medicine. I will know in my heart. I know my body enough. I'm the one that knows myself the best. So I knew if I needed something. So they offered me morphine if I wanted it, in pill form, that I could take at home, and I was so confused by that. I didn't know they offered that, but they offered me that, and I was like, no, I don't want that. No, thank you. I am not one that takes a ton of medicine. I hardly ever take medicine. I am very much a believer of you can heal your body, unless it gets to a certain point where it's just like everything you're doing is not working and you do need that medical advice. I'm a firm believer in doctors, so like I'm not like just this like don't listen to the doctor. I had my baby in a hospital, so like trust me, I'm not like that. But I just am not a huge fan of taking medicine, just because of the way that it affects me. I'm very, very sensitive. I'm a very sensitive person, and so I was just really like sketched out. I was like, morphine, what the heck? And then they're like, or you can take Tylenol at home. And I was like, okay, cool. And I thought I had Tylenol at home, but you'll realize that I didn't. So I was like, okay, fine, like, you know, I'm still a 2, it's okay. So they discharged me, but before I left, I went to the bathroom real quick, and then I had a huge contraction, like a huge one, and that just like brought me to tears. It wasn't like I am done, like I'm so like at this like lower level in my mind type thing, like a lower level mindset. I was just like like when I'm around, like when John's there, I allow myself to be vulnerable. So I was like having a contraction, he came into the bathroom, and I just started crying, and I just hugged him, and I was like, I could be in labor for 3 days, because that's what one of the nurses told me. They were like, you never know, like you could be in labor for 3 days, or like you just never really know with your first time being a mama. And so I just kind of cried it out, and then after I let it out, I was like, okay, like, that's cool. Like, let's go home, and like, if it progresses, great. If not, whatever happens, happens. So I gave myself pep talk. But I swear, like, right after we left the hospital, my body heard that and like kicked into gear and was like, all right, we're laboring. So on my way home, I was just like experiencing more and more contractions, and they were getting more intense. I just remember we were in the car and I was like, I just can't wait to take a bath. Like, I just need to take a bath. I was just feeling achy and just like kind of run down. Good thing though that like John was keeping me hydrated. He kept having me drink water and drink water. That's what the nurse said when she discharged us, was keep her hydrated, keep her fed. And John had made, he's just an amazing human. He made veggie broth, because we're vegan, so he made like a veggie broth for me, and in this little canteen. He put this in the canteen so that it would stay warm, so I could just sip on it, so I didn't have to like eat something while I was laboring. I was just sipping on that, and that was sustaining me, plus drinking a ton of water. He's an angel, like, oh my gosh. And so I got home, I started laboring in the bathtub, but I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be with just me and John. I was just like telling my friends, I was like, is it okay if it's just like me and him? And she's squirming around, it's cute. And they're like, yeah, of course, like, take a bath, like, it's totally fine. And so I was just taking a bath, and I was just kind of crying to John and just being like, this is so much pain, like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't get comfortable in the bathtub, and I thought that I would want to be in the bathtub like the whole entire time, and I just could not get comfortable. It was like that pain down there, like, I could not find a way. You can see her whole leg. I just could not find a way to get comfy being in that bathtub. Like, it was just like I couldn't find a release. And when I was walking around, I could find a release because I was just like, I don't know, I just very much love movement, and I just felt like I couldn't find a release when I was in the bathtub. And that's where it got so intense. I was just like, I need medicine, like, I need Tylenol. Do we have Tylenol? Like, everything just started to hit me. And the only thing we had was baby Tylenol, because when I had a cold in my pregnancy, I was so paranoid about taking real Tylenol that all I wanted was baby Tylenol. So John was like giving me like the little baby syringe, like the plastic syringe. He was just like giving that to me in my mouth, like over and over and over, and it wasn't working. Like, obviously, because it's for babies, so it like just wasn't working. And then I got into my bed, and I was like butt-a naked, and I was like, no, I don't want my best friend to see me naked. And she's like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, she's like, I have all the parts you have, like, calm down. Like, not calm down, she wouldn't ever say that, but like, it's gonna be fine. And so I started laboring in bed, and one of the nurses mentioned as well, because there were a couple of nurses, they were kind of just like switching out. She mentioned that a side laying position would be awesome for labor. And I agreed, because when I was pregnant, if I ever felt sick, I would just snuggle up to my pregnancy pillow and just like lay on my side and have my belly just kind of flop on the pillow. So that's what I did, and that literally saved me so much, just being able to she just pooped. You can just like hear it, you know? And so that position saved me so much in labor. So I was just on my side, just laboring, and that's when everything like intensified to 90 million. So that's when I felt my contractions the worst. So everything just kind of like, oh my gosh, like, it just went to like the next level. I heard about this prior to me giving birth, but a common thing from ladies that are pregnant, they think that you would feel your contractions in your abdomen, because that's like where you feel Braxton Hicks, but contractions are felt in your pelvis. It's like, to me, the best way I describe it is that it's like a bowling ball wanting, like pushing down on your pelvis, and then the contractions are like a huge wave moving that bowling ball down and down and down. And that's what's nice though about like contractions in like my brain, is that like it's like a wave, so you just know when they're coming, like you know when they're starting, you can breathe with it. It goes up to the very top and you're like, oh my gosh. Like I was saying, like I wasn't ever mean or saying anything mean, but I was just like oming and chanting and like grabbing John's shirt, because he was like, I was laying on my side, he was laying right in front of me, just like making sure I was okay, and I was grabbing his shirt and just like hugging him the tightest I can hug him, and then releasing when the like little wave would go down, and that's the contraction. So that is the intensity of like what I felt. It got to them being so consistent and so together that I couldn't breathe. So like it came from me taking that bath that kind of like made me like lose my breath a bit because it got steamy and really, really hot, and then just having contraction after contraction after contraction. I felt like I was gonna pass out, and I kept telling John and my best friend that I was like, I am gonna pass out, I'm gonna pass out, I can't breathe, I'm not gonna have any energy for pushing. I got to this point where I just like couldn't breathe, and I would go in and out of like this mindset of like, I got this, to like, oh, I need medicine. And so I eventually got to this point where I was like, I need them to cut her out. Like there's no way I have enough energy to make it back to the hospital to push her out. There's no way. And I also was saying, I was like, any medicine, I don't care what it is, I want it, I don't care. And that's because they weren't stopping. The contractions weren't stopping. They would start and they would go, and they kept going and going and going. And I'm like, why am I not getting a break? Like, why am I not getting a break right now? And I was so confused. I was like, 5 minutes ago I was getting a break, and now they're just like going. And I was like, I think it's time we need to go to the hospital. I wasn't the first one to say that though. It was my best friend that she was like, I think, because she was timing the contractions, and she was like, I think we should go to the hospital. And then John was like, how far along are they? And they were like lasting, I swear, I think she said for like they were lasting for like 4 minutes, and I wasn't getting like any break in between. Not even joking. And I was like, we need to go. Like I was thinking that mentally, but I don't think I said it out loud. And so we went to, she's so cute. She's just like moving around, and then she'll fall back to sleep. And so then we went, and I was like butt naked, like I was saying, and I was like, oh, I have to get clothes on. And so in between contractions, I put my pants on, I put my shirt on, and then eventually I was like, I'm not eventually, but I was like, I don't even have enough energy to put my bra on. I was like, that's how you know, like for me to go out in public with no bra, my like boobs just hanging out, that's how you know I am like dying. I mean, I would do that anyway, but I'm saying like in a public place talking with a ton of people, like all the nurses, doctors, I wouldn't normally do that. So like that's how you knew it was like the deal, like it was time. And so we eventually got in, and I'm gonna take a pause real quick. I'm just gonna change her, and then I'll be back. Okay. Hi guys. So this angle might not be that great, but she is hungry. So I'm breastfeeding. So if you feel weird about that, sorry. But as I was saying, I knew it was a real deal when I didn't need a bra. And I was just like, let's go. We're going to the hospital. And so we made it to the hospital. And having contractions in a car, I don't know how women do it, but it was intense. And it was only an 8-minute car ride, and it was crazy, just feeling those contractions. So we got to the hospital, and we parked on like the bottom floor. And I was like, crap, this is the bottom floor, like, ugh. And so I remember right when we parked, they were getting all the stuff out of the car for like what I needed for my delivery and my labor. And I like ran away because I was like waddling. I was like, we just gotta go. And I was so slow because I obviously am 9 months pregnant, 10 months pregnant, however you want to say it. And I was like waddling, but I just could not sit still. still, like I was saying, with contractions, I just wanted to keep moving. So I eventually got to the elevator and we all got on, and having contractions in the elevator, oh my gosh. I just wanted out, but good thing elevators are fast. And so I got out of the elevator, I had a huge contraction. John was like, should we stay in the elevator? I was like, no, we can't do that. So eventually I'm like wobbling to the entrance, and John asked me like prior to that, like, do you want me to drop you off at the front? And I was like, no, because I didn't want to be away. I didn't want to be away from them. Like, I would have been way sad. Like, just like having that comfort of like people I know around me is like what I needed. So we eventually got inside, and they were asking me if I wanted a wheelchair, and I was like, no, because again, the movement thing for me was crucial. So we got in there, I was wobbling around, and I was having contractions, like, I'm not even kidding, they weren't stopping, and I was like ohming and oohing, and there were people in the lobby, and I was like, they probably think I'm crazy right now, but I don't even care because this is helping me so much. And so I kind of let that like ego thing go of like people watching me. And eventually this labor and delivery nurse was like, hey, I'm on lunch, but are you, like, how far along are you, or not how far along, she's like, how dilated are you? Because she just knew that that didn't sound like I was just in like the beginning stages of labor. And I told her I was still like, I didn't even respond because I couldn't, I was in so much pain. So everyone around me was responding. So they told her, and then she's like, okay, do you want a wheelchair? And at that point, like, I kept telling everyone no. At that point I was like, yes, like, I need a wheelchair. And kind of backing up, my friend had like a little growler glass bottle type thing of water to keep us all hydrated, and he ended up dropping it when he was like going to get a wheelchair for me, because eventually I was like, yes, I want a wheelchair, and he was going to like grab it or whatever. I think everything is kind of a blur, but like when you're like in that intensity, like everything kind of blurs together. But it was funny because it had dropped on the ground. It was a bunch of water, and she's like, did your water break? And I was like, no, but I kind of laughed, and that was like something that like brought joy back into my heart. Like, not that it was gone, but like, you know what I'm saying, when you're in that much pain, like, you just need a little laugh. And that made me laugh so hard, and we were all kind of laughing. And then she put me in the wheelchair, and she provided counter pressure. She put both of her hands on my knees, and that was the most life-saving thing ever. And we continue to use that like trick throughout my delivery too. So then she like quickly took me up to the elevator, and I was contracting so fast. I was like in a whole other dimension. From all my meditation and yoga and everything, I just like went to another dimension, I swear. And then we got upstairs to labor and delivery, and they were like trying to check me in, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're checking me in right now when I literally like just need to go deliver this baby. That's how I felt. And so they everyone else was answering for me, like for my like any questions they had, and I was like, thank you guys so much for doing that, because obviously I can't talk. And so then we went, and she checked me, and she told me I was a 9. I was 9 centimeters dilated. I had progressed from a 2 to a 9 in the matter of 4 hours, because it was midnight that we went to the hospital the second time. In the matter of 4 hours, I went all the way to a 9. And right when she checked me, my mucus plug fell out, and I was like, something fell out of me. And she's like, that's your mucus plug. And John was trying to tell me a joke. He was like, one day I'll tell you what your mucus plug looks like, because we joke around every second of every day. And I wanted to laugh, but I was like, I can't laugh right now, I'm in so much pain. And they were like, does she want medicine? Like, does she want an epidural? Like, what does she want? So the doctor came in to talk to me, and she was like, honestly, if you get an epidural, it's not gonna work. Like, it's just not gonna work. And I was like, kind of like, you know what? Yes, because I've always wanted an all-natural labor and delivery. And so I was like, you know what? This kind of was like forcing me to do it. And I'm like, okay, cool. They're like, but we do have gas and air. So I was like, yes, I want to do that, because I couldn't breathe. I was gonna like pass out from how fast these contractions were happening. So I did gas and air, so it's like 50% air, 50% nitrous. And that was like the only intervention I had. So I guess if you can call that an intervention, I still consider myself as having a natural labor, a natural birth. And basically I just used the gas and air in between each contraction, And then they did break my water. So they broke my water because that was the last thing that needed to happen. I was just kind of waiting on her to break the water, like little miss right here. And it never happened. So I had her break my water. She asked me if I was okay, and I was like, if that was okay, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. And she did that. And then they were like, you know what, we're gonna like let you labor until you feel like you need to push. And so it was kind of a very calm and serene thing. It was so beautifully just done. Like, everyone with me was kind of alternating between pushing on my knees, holding my hand, the nurse was holding my other hand, and everyone was so kind and compassionate and loving, and it was just so beautiful. And they kept asking me if I needed to push, and I was like, nope, don't need to. And then eventually I just felt like I needed to, and I didn't say a word. I just got into position because I knew if I would have broken that meditation, that I would have broken my like mindset of just like pushing her out and having this beautiful experience. So then I just got into position, and then they're like, oh, she's ready, and they just started lifting up the hospital bed, like the back, so that I can like where my head was, so that I can like get into position more. And then I pushed, and it was about 4 minutes of pushing, and she came out. And I remember them, like, they were telling me, they're like, because we have a little bit on video, but I don't want, it's my little sacred video that I don't feel comfortable sharing on the internet. So I'm not, but I will obviously, I obviously told you guys the whole story, but she mentioned to kind of slow down my pushing so I would prevent tearing, but I was so in my meditation that I didn't really hear her, and I knew to slow down because of tearing, because of how many videos I watch. Like, I know so many mamas and all the advice I had received, and so I slowed down a bit, but I still ended up tearing a 1st degree tear, so not too bad, and not a ton of stitches, and they dissolve on their own, so that's really cool, and I don't feel on my stoned. But and yeah, and she came out, and I'm gonna get emotional. She came out, and I just like broke my trance of like my meditation, and I was like, I'm here. And they put her on my chest, and I just started screaming, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And it was like another world, like another world I entered. I feel like I've entered like this whole other state of like who I really am, because I've always wanted to be a mom, and her, like, being an angel that she is, like, she cries hardly. She cries if she's hungry and if she needs her diaper changed. Like, that's about it. And she is an angel. Like, I finally got to meet this beautiful girl that I had been growing for 9 months, and that feeling is just out of this world. Like, you mamas know, like, that feeling is out of this world. And I just can't believe that I got to experience that with this little baby, and being her mom is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Ever, 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 ever. And I've had some pretty cool experiences in my life, if I might add. Like, I've had some pretty freaking cool experiences, but nothing tops this. Nothing. Anyway, she's an angel, and I'll have a video coming soon of my recovery and how that's going, and postpartum and all of that. But thank you guys so much for your love on my last video, and for your love on all my videos. I still can't believe that people are watching these, but thank you guys. If you want more updates, I use Instagram all the time, and that's just _Mother Teresa. I post tons of pictures of this little angel, so you can see her on there. I would show you her, but she's feeding, and she's hungry, and she is the best little feeder ever. So good. I'm just like so blessed with her. and we have such a bond. Like, I'm just like, I remember how I felt about her when she was in my belly, and now that she's out, it's like the same exact thing, like that intense love for her. Like, now I put a name to a face, or a body to a name, because we had her name. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. And kind of an add-on, like, she has just taught me how to be way more compassionate and way more loving and way more just understanding. It's crazy, guys, like motherhood, oh my gosh. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is a long video, but I just wanted to share. Thank you, guys. Have a beautiful day. I'm gonna sneak up. Thanks, guys.